The first message that your parents give you when you're immigrants is, this place owns you nothing. You are worth as much as the value you create for this place.
Meet Oskar Hartmann, a serial entrepreneur and investor with over 150 companies in his portfolio, ranking among the world's top 20 angel investors. This podcast is special to me, as Oskar has been my role model for years. Born in Kazakhstan, he moved to Germany, spending his childhood in a refugee camp. After university, Oskar lived in the US, Ukraine, Russia, Malaysia, Japan and the UAE. We met in Phuket, where he shared which Asian countries have the greatest potential, how to choose the right country to move to, and why immigrants often succeed more than locals. I'm Max Chernov, your insider to expat life. Let's go.
Speaking first about Asia, what do you see the hub spots or the next big thing countries in the region here?
My main belief is that population is king. If you have a large population and that population is growing, the GDP of that country will always it will leapfrog at some point, but it's almost impossible to contain a country at a very poor level over long periods of time, because technology is going forward and everybody wants to live better. So I think the countries with the highest populations have the most potentials, and the young population, young growing population. So obviously India was for me priority, because 1.5 billion people, smart people, good in mathematics, hardworking, there's no way you can stop this. It's impossible. It's impossible when you have all these families want to live a better life. It's an unstoppable force. It will always, and still India GDP per capita is very low. So there's a very large growth potential in all the big cities in India. And then obviously, then you go down by population, and Indonesia, Pakistan, and then obviously then smaller countries like Malaysia, the population has been growing extremely fast, but it's still a relatively small population, and it will take some time or Singapore is a very small place, it's a very tiny place. So I don't think I ever had any investment in Singapore, only in holding companies in Singapore. I think the smaller the countries, the bigger the business model has to be. So there's still, you can, for example, in Thailand, I invested, for example, in food delivery. If you have a very big business model like neobank or food delivery or some of the biggest business models, you can do them even in smaller countries. Other than that, I think you can, any country which has a population of more than 50 million people, you can find enough opportunities to make a living for one family. It's not the problem. So I think the choice should be more where do you feel good?
There is this notion, this idea that Western world is going down, it's broken now. What do you think when you hear it, that the Western countries overall going down and global South is going up?
Yeah, there's definitely too much misinformation in the news, and what is generally thought about is not corresponding with the numbers. So if you look at the numbers, for example, the German economy, if you look at the last 20 years, it has constantly been growing. Nevertheless, every year there's always everything is going to hell, everything. But Germany has been very strong. I was just in Germany. Unemployment is almost zero. You have almost full employment. You have people are doing really well. The GDP per capita is growing. So the numbers show a little bit a different picture than the news. The news wants to scare you. They want to get your attention, so they show all the bad stuff. There is definitely an element of that the hungry people are moving faster than full people. So, for example, in Germany, where I'm from, the average age of the population is moving towards 50 years old. So a lot of people are old, and the GDP per capita has been, 60, 70,000 euros per head for a long time. So people are doing well. So when you propose them, let's build a new factory here, and it will make the GDP go up 5,000 more, they're like, no, they vote against because they have enough. In Europe now, you have an aging population, and people that are 50, 55 years old, they have a concept of enough. We don't need to aggregate more and more and more and more. They have enough. So there's no drive There's no hunger to push, like when you see how fast Guangzhou was developing, or when you see how Dubai was developing, or Singapore over a long period of time. This is when you come from a low place, you are hungry, people want to. Now, of course, Singapore will also, the growth rate will go down because people doing well, kids grow up in a very comfortable way, so there's a different dynamic there. But obviously, the world will develop over the next 100 years where population is young and GDP per capita is low, and there's a growing population. Because when you have a falling population, you have a lot of negative effects. So I would not recommend anybody moving to a city with a falling population. The cities, when the population starts going down, it becomes a depressed city. Real estate is going down, business is going down, opportunities is going down, everything. Population is aging, population becomes less innovative, less change, they don't want change. Everything becomes fixed. There's no room for newcomers. You don't need newcomers when everything is already done, fixed. So you always move to a city that is growing, where you have new population. Like New York, every year, like 200,000 people move to New York. It's always new. Everybody needs everything. Everybody needs an apartment, a car, doing well, in vacation, this. So the world will be dominated, the growth. I don't think that it will be possible that to keep all these countries at a low level, because innovation is going forward, and the technologies will become available. We are like in the next industrial revolution, and this will move a lot of people out of poverty, so Europe, the biggest problem in Europe, number one, is the aging population and the decline of fertility rates. Europeans just stopped making kids. Italians now 0.7 kids per family. So that means minus 60% of population every generation. Every generation, minus 60, minus 60, minus 60. So you very quickly, over 2-3 generations, you come to zero.
Yeah.
So that's, and when you have the falling population, falling fertility rates, aging population, it will be like nobody needs anything. Nobody needs anything. Everything is done. Everything looks nice. We just want to live our life here. Leave us alone. And that's not a good place, obviously. By the way, there will be a huge amount of migration, right? So your channel is very good, because I think 1 to 2 billion people will change the place they live, mostly moving to big cities. So there will be an unprecedented movement of people. It's unstoppable. Remote work did not change it, nothing. Coronavirus did not change it, so there will be a massive movement of people into big cities. Massive, insane.
Within
the next 25, 30 years.
Yeah, more than now.
Yeah, more than now, much more than now. I think Europe will continue to be wealthy, and per capita it will be improving wealth over the next generation. But then, in one generation, the problems will, like, you can see it coming. You can see the problem coming, and people are ignoring the problem. But it's gonna come, and then it's gonna be really difficult to come out of this, really difficult. So obviously in the global competition, Europe is losing against the US and China.
And the US, people say US is going down so much. They have a lot of internal problems, but if you see the economy numbers, the economy is doing well in the US.
Come on, just check the GDP of the US for the last 20 years. And then please, I think, of course, because of the cultural, like the entire left against right and all this, I think there's a lot of irrational thinking about the US. The economy is the strongest. Look at all stock exchanges are at all-time high. All-time high. Nasdaq, NY, everything is all-time high. S&P 500, all-time high. Right now, very positive outlook. Extremely positive outlook at the moment. So maybe people can claim that culturally, in terms of it's like peak capitalism. So you can criticize in terms of maybe classical music or theater or something, but not in economy. Yeah. In terms of business, no competition.
I think that's the kind of the problem on a human being level, the family level is like the security, and if you live in LA, like great place, but maybe if you have children, you don't feel safe about your children going to school, this kind of stuff. I mean, it's irrational, but even if there is a super tiny chance that something happened, like shooting happened to your family, but if you're always processing it and you're thinking about it, it will affect all your life.
But maybe that is good for economy.
Why?
People have to hire security, people have to buy a house in a good area where you have, you have different areas in the US, and you have areas that are safe and areas that are not safe, and there you have good schools, bad schools, and you have a big diversity. So maybe the world is winning because of the large diversity. I'm just thinking out loud, but if you see the richest country in the world and it has a very large inequality, and the inequality is becoming worse, it might be that this is part of the success, because every child is growing up and you see every day the homeless, the drug addict, the gangster, and you're like, okay, you have a very big margin from loser to winner. So if you win, if you are successful, you live in the US. You have the richest people in the world, 500 billion now, like was soon going to be trillion, So you have a very big difference between you do something with your life and you do nothing with your life. Huge difference. For example, if you grow up in Scandinavia, if you do something with your life or you do nothing with your life, the difference is very small. So then people grow up and they say, why should I bother? Like in Germany, a lot of times when I go to Germany, people tell me, why should I take a risk? I'm already living well. I'm living well like it is now, doing completely useless job at some company that didn't even check what I was doing for the last year. It's still fine. You live fine. You don't drop down. So it looks like for capitalism to work, you need downside. You need downside. So the US, it's like a free market economy. You do well, you have insurance, health insurance, you live in a nice place, you don't have health insurance, basic security. And I'm not talking about humanitarian things now, right? Of course, everybody should have health insurance and everybody should get help. I'm just thinking in terms of business. When a country is doing extremely well, you have to think that maybe every component is necessary. You cannot just take this but not take this, because you will not get the same result. So you have a country with the most ambitious people, the most driven, most hungry. When I go to the US, I'm always like, wow, everybody's building a huge company, big. Nobody's saying I have enough. Some people are saying I have enough, but a lot of very ambitious people. So it's, and every child has, to see, okay, there's bad guys, good guys, it's dangerous, he is not. Maybe it's part of the formula, but I agree, it looks very strange to me that you would allow people to steal and not be punished, or you don't pursue people. I agree, it's a very strange feeling when I was last time in San Francisco and you just start walking and then you realize that people start following you, and it's like what's going on, like, people are talking to you, like saying some stuff, and you're like, what is happening here? Like
that was always like that. I was in San Francisco when I was 21 year old. I was a student. It was a student exchange program, work and travel, and there was a huge culture shock. Before that, I barely left Russia, and then I went to state of Maine, close to Canada, and then the next summer I was in San Francisco. But San Francisco shifts your perspective of life. You see all kind of crazy people, all kind of different people on the street, and then you're like, oh, okay, so this exists, so this also exists, and then it's kind of broaden your perspective of life.
And maybe the world is, profiting from diversity, very large diversity of people, opinions, and outcomes.
Let's say if you don't have this money and opportunity that you have now, let's say maybe
Yeah.
15, 20 years back, if you choose the place where to move, like what would be the main factors, main criteria to think about before moving?
When I was young, the decision was like, okay, where there's cool place, beautiful girls, something like this, right? And then later you are like, okay, what's a good place for the family where you have good schools, good ecosystem, good community, a lot of very open-minded community. For example, Japan, I think, is the least open-minded for new people. And then you have places like Dubai where everybody is an expat, almost. And then they're absolutely open, no matter where you're from, it doesn't matter, everybody is an immigrant.
Yeah.
I mean, to a large proportion. Yeah, so I think it was a little bit random. There was no Excel file with, plus and minus. It was like, oh, you get inspired. Like I see like an advertising, I want to go there. Or it was like in my university, you could choose where to go depending how good you study. So if you are the best student, you choose first. And nobody else can go to this place. If you're second, you choose second. So if you wanted to go to Hawaii, you had to be a good student. Because Hawaii was one of the favorite places to go. So I had to be a good student to go to Hawaii. Yeah, and then that's it. And actually I think when I was with my wife in Hawaii, and we were choosing where we want to live. And this is the first time we did like a real exercise, like, okay, because we lived in Germany, in the US, and in Russia with my wife, and now we had to choose, like I was graduating from universities, like, okay, where do we want to establish our family? And that's the first time we did like an exercise to say, okay, we took our pictures, all the pictures that we took, and we were sorting them like by happiness. Where were we really happy, just average happy, not so happy. And we were sorting the pictures, and then we took the pictures from where we were the happiest, just the happiest. And we were looking, what was the place where we were the happiest? Like, what is the most common place? And it turned out to be Moscow. So we were really happy in Moscow. So that's how we chose, where we want to go.
Yeah.
Based on happiness. That was when we were 25 years old. That was more, like, say, the first time I was looking at it a little bit systematic. Of course, now when you choose, you consider tax, you consider much more things than, but I would always first choose on happiness, and then everything else, business, people, you can find everywhere. There's always something to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're in Kuala Lumpur or Hawaii. When I was in Kuala Lumpur, I found out there's no dating site in Malaysia.
Yeah,
So there was no dating site. There was no dating. Can you imagine? Like an entire country. So I was very motivated to build a dating website for Malaysia. Or anywhere you come, you're like, wow, there's so much to do. I think it's small things. It's 1,000 small things. The food, the conversations you have, the people, what are you thinking about, what is the vibe of the place, do you see opportunities, do you see your kids growing up there, what is the influence on your kids of this place. So it is a lot of factors, and then the combination is like, okay, is it my place or not?
Yeah.
For example, I love Japan, yeah. But I would not live in Japan, because it takes a very long time to prove to the people there that, and it's almost impossible to become like peer to them. It's always a distance.
Yeah, right. I would add maybe two things. One is, you kind of, when you move to a different place, you kind of have to put an effort trying to like the place, at least.
Yeah.
Because some people like live in a bubble. I see in Singapore, and people like come for contracts, like 2-year contract, and then like they stay longer, but they live in the bubble, expat bubble. They don't want to go to a local hawker stall to buy like chakwartiao. They don't care. They go only to like European places. So at least put in some effort. Another one, like speaking about Singapore, because I'm there, I think the places like Singapore or Dubai, what I like about them as an immigrant or expat, like if you live in London or Paris, you kind of have to be, at some point you'll become more Parisian or more French, because the culture is so deep and intense and it will influence you big time. But in Singapore, there are like 30,000 French, like 20,000 Germans, like 40,000 British. So you can and Singapore don't push their culture or their values into the new people. They kind of, okay, if you want to live here, like you bring value, you pay taxes, you can stay. I think Dubai is like even more, but that's what I think. Not every place, like I love Italy, for example, but living in Italy, like it's like, don't confuse tourism and immigration.
Yeah.
Living in Rome is probably a nightmare. Like visiting Rome, it's great, but living there is maybe not the right way.
Unless you want to become Parisian.
Exactly,
you know?
yeah.
Some people want to completely change their lives. So when I was moving to Ohio, you obviously I was the only German there, and then you fully integrate. So sometimes you have the experience that you fully integrate and you become somebody else. You live a completely new life. Like, wow, it's like unbelievable. There's almost no connection to your previous life. Or when you're already older, you can, I became fully German in Germany. I even forgot the Russian language, and then I had to relearn it later, but it was easy to relearn because it was in my childhood. But when I moved to the US, I even started forgetting German because I was not using it for more than a year. If you're not using a language, you're starting to forget it. So this is one experience, is the full immersion experience, and then other experience is more the expat experience, where you say this is temporary, this is for 1 year. So you're not planning to be buried in this place, right? Like when I live in Dubai now, I don't think I will be having my funeral in Dubai, probably. Might be, but you just know this is a really good place for now. And this is like, it has a start and a finish. I call this a mini life. You have a mini life that has a start, like a life has a start and an ending, but a mini life is a start and an ending. And I love the concept of mini lives, because every time I think, so for example, this year I'm thinking to move to the Silicon Valley, which will be a mini life. So I'm thinking, what are my goals for this mini life? What is the purpose? Who will I be? What will be my main focus in this mini life?
Yeah.
So I had mini lives in the past where I was an athlete. I was doing only sports, nothing else. So it's almost like immigration into a new, so not changing place, but changing lifestyle completely. You change what you do every day, and then you live in a new world. So I think a great way to look at it is like, this is going to be a mini life. What do I want to make out of this? What is the meaning of this life? And then it's a beautiful experience. But you know it has an end and the start, and then you try to make the most out of it.
I watched one of your interviews where you mentioned that in every big city, more or less, you can find the group of people or the social circle that you like, that resonates with you. And it's because for me it comes down, a part of happiness, also the huge criteria is social circle and people around you. Because I think it's a pipe dream when you're thinking, oh, I'll be living somewhere in Portugal next to the beach. But no, you'll be happy there for a month, and then it's like, oh, something is missing. I lived in many places.
Yeah.
I lived in Europe, in the US, in Asia. We spent, when my first daughter was born, we spent 2 months in Canary Islands in Spain. And it was super cool, but then after 2 months I was like, oh, something's missing. And I realized it's actually the social circle, the proper social circle. But the idea that I actually like a lot, in every big city, is like I live in Singapore. And Singapore is like for example, expat environment, not only expat, local as well, is like more corporate, because a lot of corporate people move to Singapore. And maybe not as that much entrepreneurial, but there are a lot of interesting entrepreneurs there. But you need to dig a bit to find them.
And you don't need many.
Yeah, you don't need many.
Yeah, you are like one person, so you need a best friend. In every place, you need to have a best friend. Who is your bro that you do everything together? One friend. It's just one person out of millions. You just need one, and then maybe a couple more friends, but it's maybe 5 friends, like a group of friends that does things together. And maybe you need a girlfriend or a boyfriend. One, just one is better. Okay. It's more a stable environment. And then in terms of entrepreneurship, you don't need many. For example, when I started investing in India, there was only one unicorn company in India, just $1 billion company. And I started investing. Now I have 4 investments in India from seed stage that went to $1 billion plus. only 4, but you don't need many. You know? You don't need that many. Now in India you have 130 unicorn companies. It's not much. It's only 130. But there's now an ecosystem of venture and people, and you can find, actually it was a very small community when I started there, and now it's still very small. You can still know everybody. It's possible to know everybody. So it's a small circle. So what does one family need? Not much. And this not much, your little bubble, you can always build. But I don't think you necessarily have to build the same thing. For example, if you like CrossFit and you like Harley Davidson, you can come to any place in the world and you will find a CrossFit studio and the Harley Davidson club, and you can find immediately, like for example when I was doing rowing, anywhere in the world where I would come, I would go to rowing, it would be immediately my friends, because we have something in common, we share. But it's not necessarily that you have to have the same interest at every place, right? You can come to a new place and acquire a new interest. But this is the fastest way. If you really know how to do something, for example, if you are really good at rowing or you are really good at one sport, no matter in the world where you come, you just go to the stadium and immediately you have, boom, it's immediate trust, because we do the same thing, right? Like it's a very quick way to find your circle. But sometimes you can become something else. You can come to a new place and you can, try something completely new, build a new life. Yeah, and I think I agree. Every city with more than 1 million people, you can find your best friend and you can find good people.
Another idea from one of your interviews is like that immigrants have like better score building successful career or successful business in the countries where they live compared to locals. Why do you think that the immigrants are statistically more successful?
It's the immigrant mindset. The immigrant mindset is a certain set of values, principles, ideas that every immigrant has, almost every immigrant. And that makes people 5 times more likely to become an entrepreneur than somebody who lives in the same place where he's born. And this is across the board, so entrepreneurship in general. And then if you look at extraordinary successful companies, unicorns, very successful companies, 50% of them, half, are founded by immigrants, which is it's a huge number compared to the percentage of immigrants that live in these places, right? I think one of the reasons is that obviously immigrants cannot be hired as easy, because when you're an immigrant, usually you don't fit into the box, the checklist of the normal employer does not work. So you don't have a choice. You don't have employment options because maybe your diploma is from another country, and then you have to build your own clinic or you have to build your own business. You have to create your job. But also, I think that is like the negative aspect is negative motivation. You don't find a job, so you become an entrepreneur. It's called necessity entrepreneurship. You become an entrepreneur because it's necessary to earn a living. But there's also opportunistic entrepreneurship, where I think that immigrants, the way that we were raised is that the first message that your parents give you when you're immigrants is, this place owns you nothing. You have no inherent rights or privileges from this place. It's not like your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather were building all this. So you are worth as much as the value you create for this place. So you don't have any entitlement. You need to earn anything. If you want to become somebody, you have to really, create value for the people. That is how we were raised. This place owns you nothing. You have to do double the effort to get anything. Like to get the same thing as your neighbor, you have to do double the effort. And the third thing, you have to create value for the community. That is the most important thing, is you. Who are you and what value? So this mindset, I think, is hard work, no entitlement, and value creation creates a lot of entrepreneurs. And then I would say the last kind of global thing that I would say is the immigrants, they become witnesses. Each immigrant sees with their own eyes that they left one life, they had a life, they leave, and they build a new life. And when you see that you can build a new life with your own hands, You from zero, from nothing. You come, and it's only you. And then you build something. You prove to yourself that you can create something from nothing. And when you prove to yourself that you build your own life, you automatically think, what else can I build? Because a lot of people that live in the same place where they were born, they experience the world in a different way. It's almost like they were born into this world that is already finished. And then you grow into your life, and this is the way it is. You didn't really build. From childhood, you get this life. But when you're an immigrant, you have to build your life. So you come to a place, you're like, okay, it's a white sheet of paper, like, okay, who will be my best friend? Where will I go? What are the places? Like, what do I want? With whom do I want to do this? What are my goals? Who am I? You can redefine yourself. A lot of times immigrants, when they move, they become a little bit a different person because you acquire a new language. By having a new language, you become a new personality. The language have a big impact. Of course, there's your core that stays the same, but when I moved to the US, I became a high school student. I was basically 100%. I became this new thing. And so when you see, wow, I can change myself, I can change the world, I can change my experience, you automatically think, what else can I create? And the very last reason is obviously because immigrants have an information advantage, because they always bring ideas from one place to another. So every time, when I was even very young, I was arriving at any place, I was like, wow, why do they don't have this here? Why does this place not have this? So it was very easy to create value because you see the opportunities that you can bring from one place to another. So it was always the people who were traveling were always entrepreneurs because they saw something, got inspired. So I became an entrepreneur in Germany because I saw something in the US. I saw it with my own eyes. And I came back to Germany and it did not exist. The same thing. Did not exist. And then I was like, okay, I will put this here and it will work.
Yeah, the thing about the competitive advantage that you saw something in like another country, it actually happened to me to some extent, like because I had a large YouTube channel about social media marketing, Chernov, it's how to grow Instagram, YouTube, Telegram, personal branding. It was the biggest in the niche like 5-6 years ago. And because I built this channel, back then, when I moved to Singapore, I started realizing that the market is like, first the market is very small and most of it is like just 5.5 million people. So most of the YouTube channels, they only target the small Singapore market. So that's one factor. Another one is people in Singapore, they don't have automatic source of cheap labor. So they need to figure out, okay, how I hire Filipinos or Malaysians. But in Singapore, it's like super expensive to hire people. And I used to hire like a lot of people in Russia. And so and the Russian infrastructure on YouTube is like, it's huge because there are so many successful channels because TV sucks and like just a lot of cheap labor, huge market, a lot of advertising money. So I kind of used that knowledge and skill to build a channel in Singapore. So instead of only targeting like Singapore market, we first tested in Singapore and then we expanded to Malaysia, Indonesia, India, China, Philippines, and this one. And the second one, all my team is like it's lean and small team, and they located across the globe. Yeah. So I don't need to pay like huge salaries.
Yeah.
And if you're in Singapore, you don't know. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Wait a second. Hi from Singapore. So this talk with Oskar was a game changer. I've been following this guy for a few years. He's one of my main mentors in business and in life. And it's just incredible that my current job helped me to actually meet him and to talk to him and just learn from people like Oskar. It's incredible. I'm so grateful that I'm able to do it. So if you ever wanted to launch your project, like online project, maybe with your 9-to-5 job and be able to travel the world, make money and be quite flexible with your own time and spend time with your friends, with family, girlfriend, boyfriend, like still making money. I have something for you. I'm launching the guide how to basically start your own online project and how to quit a 9-to-5 job. It's not ready yet. I will leave a link in description to the Google form. You fill it up, there are just few questions, and then when the guide is ready, you will know it among the first ones. Link in description. Let's do online business together.
We actually met like randomly 13 years ago. I was in P&G. You were the founder of the company and you came to Procter & Gamble for presentation. I remember you back then. But since then, I think I would say like maybe last 6-7 years, I was following your books, your channel, and like you're one of the role models for me.
Okay, thank you.
No, for real, like a lot of things play positive effect in my life. Also, like your concept of unicorn hunting, like maybe you can talk about it. So first, like from business standpoint, you invested in how many?
150 companies.
150, and you are a top. Like how many people invested in?
Yeah, I think it's not about the number of investments in terms of results, value creation, how much the companies I have invested in grew during my ownership. I'm top 20 in the world according to CB Insights and Deal Book, some of the people who collect all the data.
Yeah, that's insane. Okay, so that's the business standpoint. From the personal life standpoint, like tell me about your concept of like following, like trying to find unicorns in different areas of your life.
Yeah, life unicorns. Life unicorns are experiences that you will never forget until the end of your life. So I always think about at the end of my life, if I sit down and I think, what will be the experiences that I can write down that I remember, that were very special, that were very memorable, where there were like people I love and the very good emotions and good place, everything was beautiful. These are life unicorns. And I'm trying to create these life unicorns. So I'm trying to, every year I'm trying to make events that will be unforgettable for me.
Yeah.
So this is my philosophy of life, is basically in business and in life to hunt for this unicorn experiences. And that's what makes me go to the South Pole, to the North Pole, to the mountains, to the oceans, everywhere. And the mini lives is always a life unicorn. So every mini life, my experience in Japan, my experience in Hawaii, my experience in Ohio, I will never forget this in my life. These are life-changing moments, because you come in as one person and you come out as a different person. You changed.
And it's also aligned with the concept of alternation.
Yeah.
As you have a book about it.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, you're 2 times world champion in rowing.
Yes.
So basically you dedicate like a couple of years of your life.
You go all in for a certain period of life. Yeah, in sports you have alternation. So I wrote this book, Alternate, because it is a never-ending immigrant. I understood that you can alternate everything, your self-identity. You can change your identity. So you can say, I am an athlete. After I was a businessman and I was, 250 pounds and I was like a businessman, I changed and I became an athlete, and I broke 2 world records, because you can change self-identity, you can change everything, you can change your lifestyle. And what I found moving all the time, that alternating creates balance. So in nature is balancing everything with seasons, with phases. There's always phases. Almost nothing in nature is a straight line. Everything is like wavy. You can even claim the entire universe is, always pulsating. It's always a wave everywhere to balance things out. So I started to employ this idea in my life, to not burn out. I take periods where I do something completely different. I alternate, and I can, do a mini life as a Silicon Valley, investor. Then I can come back, be an athlete again. I also have 4 kids, so I do sprints where I'm focusing on fatherhood or other things. So I think life is more than one thing. Life is more than one thing. Every time you move to a new place, you find out that you need a hobby, you need sports, you need the best friend, you need a girlfriend, you need community, you need something to do, you need to have something with your own hands. So when life is more than one thing, the only way to balance all these priorities is with phasing. And this is also how I broke the world record, because when I was training, when I became an athlete at the beginning, I just tripled my workload. I said, now I do only sports, so I do 3 times more. And when I was doing this for a long period of time, my results were not improving, because just more does not work. And then when I hired, when I found mentors who were world champions before, they created phases, like a phase for strength, a phase for strength endurance, a phase for power, a phase for doing nothing, where it's called super compensation phase, where after you did all the loads, you take 1 week off and you give your body time to recover. And this phasing in sports is very well known. Every professional athlete, everything is a wave. But in other areas of life, we don't usually do this phasing. We try to find the perfect settings. Yeah, and I wrote this book, which I think is purely due to the fact that I was from childhood always moving and always alternating my entire personality.
Also like your concept of projects. Like your life is a set of projects.
Yeah.
And yeah, it resonates with me a lot also. So I start planning like my life, my personal life, plus my business based on this like sets of 3 months or like 6 month periods.
Yeah, it's very interesting that in business we spend thousands of hours, to make a business plan. Where do we want to go, with what resources, where do we want to play, how we want to win, with whom, what is the team, and then we iterate every quarter. We look at budget, fact, what massive amount of work. And the business might only be a small, like a $10 million business. But in life, what is more important than life? Life is certainly more valuable than 10 million, certainly. Yeah. So why don't we do the same thing for life? So about 12 years ago, when I sold my first company, I said, stop. I'm now going to do for my life the same thing that I do for business. Strategy sessions, retreats, thinking, design. What is the life I want to experience? So it's a real, like an architect job. So this year, what do I want to experience this year? What do I want? Like it's a series of events. What do I want that is happening to me? How can I make it, to my liking, that I actually like what is happening to me? And this is a process that I'm now doing 12 years. Every year I'm doing a personal budget. Then I do fact versus budget analysis. I think where to play, how to win, what sport should I pick that will give me the most benefits, how should I plan my movement, that I can take my kids, that I can, this is now in my calendar is the result of like 1,000 hours of work before I start the year. With mentors, with other people who look at it, who give me advice, what how I should spend my time, my resources. So this is now a very high consciousness process for me. Over 12 years I have now really, and the place is important. The place where you live is very important because it influences, the space where you are, it influences everything.
You said you have 4 kids. One of your ideas, so you worked a lot before your kids were smaller. Now they are like in a kind of teenager phase, and then you know that it's not going to be forever. So when they're like 18, 19, they probably like want to live their own life more separately.
Yeah, statistically, 95% of all the hours you spend with your kids until 18 years old.
And that actually made you to make this decision. Okay, now maybe I spend more time with my kids, and then after 50-year-old, 55-year-old, I still have like 20 years doing business, which is like a bit of a revelation for you if you think about it this way. So you need to make sure your health is good, otherwise this plan can be screwed. But if you're planning like really the long-term planning and think, okay, I can also actually build my career, and I don't want to retire, I want to build my career in business after 50, after 55. And also you mentioned the statistics that a lot of money actually made in the second half of life, or even the last third of life. People.
You can do business perfectly when you're 50, 55, 60, 65. You actually have a competitive advantage even, right? There's a time for everything. There's a perfect time. And I think to think super long term is very important. So really, what is the best time to be a professional sprinter is from 20 to 25 years old. If I'm now, say, with 42 years old, I want to be a professional sprinter, it's not going to be much value. So what is the time to be a father? It's now. Now, when my kids are the age, 9 years old, 13 years old, small. This is the prime time to be father. And in terms of my capabilities as an investor, entrepreneur, they don't go down. You actually, like in business, you can see that older guys outcompete younger guys all the time. You can actually win, so you have a lot of advantages, the way your mind works, how much you know, the knowledge, the aggregated. So for the prime time in terms of investors actually is like 50, 60 years old, prime time, where you actually make the best quality decisions. So I think that's why I said from 40 to 50 I will focus a lot on family, do other things, and then from 50 to 60 can do one more sprint, like entrepreneurial sprint, and from 60 onwards I want to spend most of my time in my university. So I want to build a university and develop it over a very long period of time, and I want to spend most of my time in my university.
What do you think the biggest misconception, or like something that people don't get about life? I don't want to sound like super, like going, like looking down at people or like putting you in a position of a guru. But what people you think, based on your experience, don't get about life that makes them unhappy in life or not successful, whatever success means in life?
I think that the first aspect that gets way too much attention, way too much, is money. People think too much about money, and people think wrongly that money solves all problems. But money solves only financial problems, relationship problems, health, all other problems have to be solved independently of money. So I think it's like a mega belief. It's like the religion of money. If you think that the global religion is now, more people say Christianity or Islam, maybe the biggest religion in the world is now money. And it's a mistake, because you live in this illusion, you live believing in something that is not true. And then you hunt for something that will not give you the result that you anticipated. So the things that you think will make you happy will not make you happy. That is, I think, very interesting that we got this mind that tricks us into thinking that these things will make us happy. It will not make us happy. And what will make us happy are not things. Probably the second misconception is that a lot of people think that circumstances make all the difference to your life experience. So that's when people think they move to a different place, they think they will be happy there. But what we see is, like when all the Germans moved from Kazakhstan to Germany, the ones that were happy in Kazakhstan were happy in Germany. And the ones that were always frustrated in Kazakhstan, in Germany, also frustrated. They found a new reason to be frustrated. So actually, happiness is more a decision, it's more an internal game than an external game. So changing country, changing city, it has impact, but it is not as strong as your inner world, I think. If money is the most overvalued thing in the world, the most undervalued thing in the world, undervalued, is action, taking action. Somehow people think that knowledge is automatically going to be action. So if you know that sugar is bad and broccoli is good, that means you will eat broccoli and not eat sugar. But it's not true. And it's the same for all other knowledge. Every knowledge in the world. Knowing does not mean doing. Knowing the way and going the way is two different things. And action is underrated. So people who take action, for this, one very important requirement for action is courage. Because at the end you never know nobody's going to give you a guarantee of a positive result. And maybe one of the things that immigrants have is courage. Because to move to a different place is scary. You don't know. You don't know, will you find a friend or you will not find a friend? You will find a job or you will not find a job. So you have to have courage to go somewhere. And people who have courage, they take action. More. So I think courage and taking action, even when you have uncertainty, even when you don't have full information, even when you don't have guarantee that this will work, even when you don't have the resources yet, taking action is the most undervalued thing in the world. So what I see is that people who take action can outperform all the time. People who are more knowledgeable, have more resources, have more connections, but don't take action. So if you come and you take action, just met a guy here yesterday in Phuket. He doesn't speak English, does not speak Thai, does not speak English. He built the biggest money exchange company here in Phuket. He doesn't have the language. He started with zero, with nothing, no connections, nothing. How is it possible that he now has the biggest exchange network for money exchange in Phuket? How is it possible? How?
Luck. If you rank like these three things, one is like your natural inclination to something, like biological, like gene stuff. Then like your free will and like decision that you like change your life and stuff, do actions. And the third one is luck. If you rank these three in the life, what would be the leader?
It depends what you do, which activity you do. If you go into a sphere with high predictability, let's say you build real estate, right? It has been done millions of times before. It needs certain planning. The element of luck is much smaller. Then maybe the free will is the most important. You don't need much genetics to be a real estate developer. You don't need to. It's not very complicated to build real estate. You don't need to be very smart.
But you have to be kind of structural thinking person.
You have to be systematic, attention to detail. But it's millions of people have done it. It's possible.
Yeah.
Not very complicated. High amount of certainty, and the luck component is maybe you are unlucky if you take like a loan with a flexible interest rate, and then the interest rate goes to the roof or something. But some luck is involved. But if you go into artificial intelligence now, for example, you need a much stronger skill set in terms of technology, engineering, and you need to know a lot of things and to be quite extraordinary talented to build something in artificial intelligence. And then you have maximum uncertainty. Maximum. We don't even know what we don't know. We don't unknown unknowns, and we don't know what artificial intelligence will be able to do in 5 years. And all companies in the world are competing at the same time against each other. So the competitive dynamic is completely unknown. So in this environment, your luck plays a huge role. Huge. So the only way to escape for that, so for example, the biggest people in artificial intelligence, they make hundreds of investments because their element of luck is so high that you cannot predict. You cannot predict. You have to make hundreds of investments, and then you have few winners that will take it out. So maybe if you take certain amount of, there's certain sports, for example, let's say high jump. If you don't have certain genetics and certain body type, you have no chance. Or let's say for rowing, right? You need a certain, even
like
proportions of your body to be able to be maximum effective. So if you don't have the genetics, you will not. The nervous system. If your nervous system doesn't work in a certain way, you can become good, but you cannot become a champion. It's very important to choose your main activities in life that fit with your genetics. There's a lot of, for every type of genetics, there's a zone of genius, what to do with these genetics. A lot of people just don't do the thing that is in their zone of genius, right? So you have to, basically the first 25 years of your life, you have to spend finding what is the perfect match. That is your free will. Your free will is actually not saying, I'm small and I have wide hips and I gain weight easy, but I want to be high jump champion. That is not free will. That is stupid. That's stupid. Free will is saying, okay, with my genetics, maybe I have to do gymnastics, or maybe I have to do something else, right? Some other. Yeah, but I think, like, if you say all the activities in the world, I think genetics explains less than half of results that we see. So I think the control is with free will. Control is with free will. Yeah. And you have people, even like I saw the swimmer from Japan, he's 1.75 m, and he broke the world record in butterfly. I think this is an amazing achievement. with this height, to break the world record is really, really special. I mean, it's really not. He's competing. Everybody is 2 meters tall, 25 centimeters taller than him, and he breaking the world record. That is extraordinary. That is like the proof of you still have free will. Yeah. In business, luck is a big component. In business, I would say you can say only 10% of businesses end up succeeding. Only 10%. As a person, to know if you are good at business or not, you actually need to open 100 businesses. Then you can start making conclusions. It's unwise to make conclusions before, because you might just have the wrong business model for that specific market, timing, the wrong timing, the coronavirus, something else, competitive dynamics. So you never know what is the external, what the internal factor, and you need a lot of data points in order to make a conclusion. And business, unfortunately, nobody can teach you to do business. If you're Jeff Bezos, one of the richest people in the world, 90% of every idea Jeff Bezos implemented did not work. All these Amazon games, where is it? Where is the Amazon wallet? Where is all these big projects? My habit, where's my habit? There's $1 billion invested, billions of dollars invested. All gone. It's almost the same with making music or writing a book, a bestseller book. Nobody can predict which book will be bestseller. You can improve your chances, but nobody can guarantee it. Nobody. You can take the random luck component out if you make enough attempts. For example, if you make music and you say, okay, every song, most groups in the world have like 1 hit song or 2 hit songs, not more, in their entire life. So if you have a very large random component, you have to make a lot of songs. And then it's like YouTube videos, right? Like reels. If you make some become viral, some don't become viral. Nobody knows the exact science, why something becomes viral, why not. So then you have to make more attempts, and then you will kind of get the statistics on average.
Yeah. I mean, you gain more experience, and then you can predict better. You still cannot predict 100%, but you predict better.
And there's nobody you can hire to say, make this video successful, and he can make it. This doesn't exist.
Yeah. What was the happiest day in your life?
I think in the top is the birth days of my children, definitely happiest. Then when I broke the world record, that was definitely a huge achievement. After I think you just steal happiness from 2 years of days, and then all the happiness goes into one day.
In front of like 100,000 people.
Yeah, it's very special. Yeah. Sometimes maybe your happiest days are even when something bad stops. So when you have pain, and then the pain stops, and then you're super happy with normal.
You used to have it, right, with your back?
Yeah, normal. This not only with this. I think there's bigger pains, like the pains that I had in my personal body. It's manageable, but when you have a problem that you cannot solve, that is outside of your control, where somebody very close to you is affected, I think it's really. Maybe like one of our children had, for example, after birth, like a huge issue, and it's unhealable. There's nothing you can do. And then for a small percentage of people with this condition, it automatically goes away when they are 2, 3, 4 years old. For 98%, it becomes worse. And for example, what happened to us is that with our child, it compensated and it's healthy now. And when this happens, you are ready to give away all the money you have, everything you have, just for your child to be happy, for your child to be healthy. And then when they told us that he compensated, that was definitely one of the happiest times of my life.
Again, related to children.
Yeah, of course.
My happiest day, I would maybe rank when my first daughter was born. I remember it. It's most memorable day for sure, and I guess it's like the happiest and most unique when you become father the first time. Yeah.
But I have a lot of maybe the happiest year was last year for me, 24, because I think I had the most happy days. I had last year a lot of happy days because a lot of the years before, my happiness was peaking very few days, like unicorn, but a lot of other days were like suffering in order to get this unicorn. So I had a lot of times I had to sacrifice 100 days to have one day like some peak experience, and that's not a good deal actually. If you think about it, I think a happy life is a series of happy days.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes you need to sacrifice, sometimes you need to work hard. But in the past, I was sacrificing a lot, too much. A lot of unhappy days, and then not unhappy days, just endurance. Like I endure a very high workload, I endure a very high stress level, endure uncertainty, endure, and then you can still be happy. Now I learn to be happy even when I have, when I'm running and everything hurts, I can still be happy. I learned this. But so I think last year it was very nice that I had a lot of days where at night I was like, thank you for this day. I will never have a day like this again, and I was very grateful. Yeah. So last year was definitely my happiest year.
Yeah. Do you think being happy is the end goal?
No. I think this is kind of one of the main purposes in life. I follow Aristoteles. Aristoteles said there cannot be another meaning of life than to be happy. But the issue is that happiness is a choice. So I can wake up and I can decide. It's a mental act. I can decide to be happy. If I focus on certain things and I give them certain meanings, I can make myself happy. Any moment. I cannot think myself into becoming a shareholder of an unicorn company. So I can not wake up and say, I just decided that I'm a shareholder of XAI. I have to actually take action, do something, and to become. But with happiness, it's much more an internal thing. So I can decide to be happy. So when you can decide to be happy, it's a decision, it's a choice. It is, for me, not the end goal. Right? So for me, life is the meaning of life. The meaning of life is life itself. And with all the emotions, not just happiness. Like the nirvana is not the only good thing. I think all the emotions are part of life. Stress, worry, all this is part of life. I'm okay with alternating, with a wave, that everything is a wave, energy is a wave, happiness is a wave. So it used to be that when my happiness was going down and up, down, I was always suffering what was down, suffering. Now I'm much more calm.
Yeah.
It's just a normal wave.
So the meaning of life is life.
Yes, it's life itself.